Welcome to Fear No Evil. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Psalms 23:1. And the evil that I'm speaking about is child sexual abuse. Because there can't be anything in this world that is more evil than child sexual abuse. And the reason why I speak about it is because I'm a sexual abuse survivor. And why do I oppose the LGBT on this subject? Because those who push the born again homosexual line are effectively ignoring the sexual abuse of children. I can't think of anything more evil than when you ignore the sexual abuse of children. Now, if those who identify as homosexual want to ignore their own history of child sexual abuse, go ahead, have at it. It's your right, freedom of will. What you don't have a right to do is ignore the sexual abuse of children. You don't have that right. And although you may have been one of those children, how dare you, on the flip side, number one, effectively ignore the sexual abuse of other children, and number two, attack other child sexual abuse survivors. Now, what the child sexual abuse survivor has that other people in society don't have is that they can go toe to toe with anyone in the LGBT because there are many characteristics that can be the same. That sharpness of tongue, that hardened heart. A child sexual abuse survivor can go up against that. Most people who are not child sexual abuse survivors cannot handle that. And that's why they don't say anything. Because the homosexual activists know how to effectively use the same weapons that were used against them to silence everyone. However, their new fight is with those who have been sexual abuse survivors. Because we have the same tendency to not be silenced. So while they're running around bashing Christians, saying things about Christians, mocking Christians, in their ignorance, they fail to realize that there are many child sexual abuse survivors out here who have healed, who understand what's going on. And when I realized that is exactly what is going on, I knew that I eventually would have to speak out. Because you have to speak out for those children who have no voice. And our voices can be just as loud as their voice. And I'm not threatened by the hate speech little triangle that I always see on my stuff. You can call it hate speech all you want. But anyone who tries to effectively ignore the sexual abuse of children, you deserve the pushback. And that's why I went against the liberals. Because there's too much information out there. How much sexual abuse occurs in our society, how much it's condoned, how much it goes on, how much people will pay to have sex with a child, and you wonder why our country is falling? This has nothing to do with President Trump. This has nothing to do with conservatives and Democrats. You got a problem, America, and the door is opened. There are many studies that show a correlation between child sexual abuse and homosexuality. But we don't hear about those studies because they've been silenced. The psychological community does everything that they can do to silence the connection. Now, I don't know if they see the connection because we have experts out here, supposedly. And you're telling me that these experts can't see the connection between child sexual abuse and homosexuality? If they can, they have effectively silenced any research. However, I myself have not been able to come up with one study that is able to show why there is a connection. What I do come across are studies that they have interviewed people who are from the LGBT. They find out that they have sexual abuse in their background, and then they show the figures on that. For instance, there was a study where 58% of male adolescents who later identified as homosexuals suffered sexual abuse as children, while 90% who did not suffer sexual abuse identified themselves as heterosexuals. Now, even that's a problem. Because when you talk about the heterosexuals, are you talking about people who have been sexually abused as children but then later identify as heterosexuals? Or are you just talking about heterosexuals? There's no study out there to even make a difference between that. Because a sexual abuse survivor who later identifies as heterosexual, you can't put them in the same demographic as just someone who's heterosexual who's not a sexual abuse survivor. Another study shows that 43% of male homosexuals reported sexual activity with another male during the ages of 10 and 12 versus 9% of heterosexuals. Okay, the 9% of heterosexuals, are they, again, people who have been sexually abused as children but later identify as heterosexuals, or people who are heterosexual but have no sexual abuse in their background? People do change, and we know this. That's why you cannot say that homosexuality is a biological trait, because there's too much testimony on people who have changed. How have they changed? I don't know. But I do know that there are people who say that they have changed. That is not the same as a characteristic as race. If you are black, you are not going to wake up white. If you are white, you are not going to wake up black. You could act either culture. It depends on the environment that you've been in. But biologically, you are not going to wake up to be a different race. But you can change the sexual orientation. So this born again, I was born gay, it is a lie. L-I-E, lie, lie, lie. And who are you lying to? You're lying to kids, because now you're indoctrinating them on this alternative lifestyle without ever addressing the fact that there may be children who have been sexually abused, and you're not even addressing that. But you want to say that you're doing this educationally to stop people from committing suicide? You don't know if they're committing suicide because they're homosexual, identifying that way, or because they're child sexual abuse survivors. Bring me one child sexual abuse survivor who has never felt suicidal in their life. And I'm not just talking one time, I'm talking many times. If you can show me one sexual abuse survivor who has never felt like they wanted to end their life over trying to heal from this stuff, or even the fact that they're going through so much, but they're unable to identify that it's coming from child sexual abuse, then we got a different study going on. But we don't have numbers in those studies. Because child sexual abuse is the most evil thing that you can do to a child. And the fact that our country is condoning this is disgusting. And the fact that the LGBT doesn't even bring it out, but is allowing other children, you're allowing other children to suffer, is what you're doing. Now, I'm not against the LGBT in the fact that they want to live their lifestyle the way that they want to live their life. What I am against is when they're bringing this to children and we're all supposed to sit back and go, oh, okay, no, that's not going to happen. Because you have child sexual abuse survivors out here, and we will continue to speak up. And you can call what I say hate speech all you want. It is not intimidating me, because there are other children who have been sexually abused, and no one knows what it's like to be a sexual abuse survivor but the sexual abuse survivor.